Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Might I Add, where we talk all things UCF sports, but you already knew that because you've seen the last couple of episodes. Today we'll be talking about the UCF football team's struggles in Cincinnati, the volleyball team's up and down weekend, and preview a certain War on I-4 matchup. And joining me today to talk to us through all this madness is HTF vet Jeremy Brener. Jeremy, what's up, dude?
JP and JB at it again.
That's what I like to hear, man.
Man, beautiful combination. Peanut butter and jelly.
Absolutely. All right, well, let's kick things off with a tough one. The UCF football team went on the road on Friday night to play Cincinnati in Nippert Stadium for a critical AAC East matchup. UCF, however, looked shaky on offense for most of the night and never really found solutions to penetrate that Bearcat defense. And the result was an unfortunate 27-24 win for Cincinnati, who now takes a lead in the AAC East race. Jeremy, what went wrong for UCF?
Dylan Gabriel simply could not get a control of that offense. He turned the ball over too much and was unable to really gather enough momentum for that offense, because the offense is all about momentum. Literally that's what they feed off of. And the Bearcats did something very different than what LSU did. LSU took the ball and they kind of just, they took the ball out of UCF's hands, so it prevented them from scoring points. Cincinnati had the total opposite strategy. They forced UCF to go on long drives and force that offense to be out there for 5-6 minute drives, something that the offense is not used to. They're used to going out there for 2-3 minutes and scoring, coming off the field, let that defense do what it does. But this game, the Knights were unable to get enough momentum, and that is what really hurt the team. Another thing that I would like to, point out, the team went into the red zone, I think, the first 5 times, and only scored 1 touchdown. And that's also unacceptable. And UCF is not in the red zone often, usually because they're scoring outside of the red zone. And they're scoring on 30, 40. They scored a 49-yard touchdown with Trey Nixon late in the game. So they're used to scoring long touchdowns, and usually they're not in the red zone. They don't have enough space to operate, and that's something that they need to work on, because teams are going to figure you out. And I think what happened is, not only can you beat UCF, but there are multiple ways you can beat UCF. And that's what Pittsburgh proved. That's what Cincinnati proved as well.
So I kind of want to go over something you said real quick. So field goals in the red zone are no bueno.
No bueno.
But then at the same time, when we're going for it on 4th down against Pittsburgh, right? And we miss that in the red zone instead, so you get no points. Is there a medium here? Is there a medium that we should go between going for it on 4th down and kicking field goals? Or is it just we need to get better on 3rd down?
Well, it depends what part of the game you're in also. I think the thing is, in the first half, you had 3 field goals inside the red zone. And in the in Pittsburgh, you went for it on 4th down in the 4th quarter when you were trying to ice the game. So, honestly, apples and oranges. But, yeah, you said it. They need to get better on 3rd down. I don't know exactly the 3rd down conversion off the top of my head. It wasn't good, though. It wasn't good. They simply could not gain any offense on 3rd down. They turned the ball over. Most of their turnovers were on 3rd down. Simply put, 3rd down is when you give Gabriel the house and you give him all the pressure you can, because Dylan Gabriel is, at this point in his career, is unable to withstand that kind of pressure. And that's something that will change over time, hopefully, in his growth and maturation as a quarterback.
So let's talk about DG a little more, because he had a rough game. He was only 25 of 46, under 300 yards, which is really not good for him, and 4 total turnovers, including a pick 6, which was really kind of the icing in the cake when you think about it. That's 7 points that should not happen, and if those 7 points don't happen, UCF wins the game. So what does DG have to do to improve his game on the road?
It's a true freshman in a road game. It's also not easy, and yeah. I feel like UCF fans and the UCF football team is so accustomed to things coming just so easy to them, because we have been pretty much indoctrinated in that culture for so long. Keep in mind, this is a true freshman quarterback in his 5th start, something like that. I think
it's 4th start,
something like that.
5th,
yeah, but
maybe.
A true road game as well. So that's 2 true road games that Dylan Gabriel has struggled in. And people are like, bring in Darryl Mack, bring in Wimbush, bring in whoever. But also, you got to keep in mind for this as well. Josh Heupel does not care about this year as much as he cares about the program as a whole. He knows that for the program to grow, he needs the best quarterback in there possible. And I believe that Dylan Gabriel is the most talented quarterback in that quarterback room. Was he the most ready quarterback for this game? I don't necessarily agree with that. I think maybe Darryl Mack was the more ready quarterback for that game. But here's the thing. The era, in my opinion, ended in Arizona at the Fiesta Bowl. It was the beginning of the Josh Heupel era. It was the end of the Frost era, even though Heupel was the coach last year. It was the end of the Milton Frost National Championship era. And then, now you're in the Heupel era. And honestly, I said it in spring. Dylan Gabriel was going to be the quarterback of this team in the fall. And the reason why is because Josh Heupel wants to build Josh Heupel's program. He doesn't want to build Scott Frost's program. After this year, most of Scott Frost's recruits are going to be gone. And it will be Heupel's real chance to really get to develop his program. And it starts with Dylan Gabriel, because Dylan Gabriel is the one guy he recruited, the one guy that he's able to truly get a hold of what Heupel wants, and not necessarily what Scott Frost wants, and honestly, not what the fans want.
So that actually brings up an interesting point. So Heupel, after these couple of losses to Pittsburgh and to Cincinnati, he's catching a lot of heat from fans and critics about his coaching decisions and his coaching habits. Are they bad? Are they good? Or is it somewhere in between?
Honestly, look, Heupel is playing for himself. He's not necessarily playing for the fans. The fans want to win. Everyone wants to win. If you could win every game, you would. But it's simply just unattainable. And Heupel is playing for the future. And Heupel is playing for the growth of the program. He's not playing to win necessarily every game this year. He's looking to and it's unfortunate because your title window, especially when you're in a group of 5 conference, is so slim. And I think UCF hit that window and it already passed. And now it's time to try to start over, rebuild, restructure, not necessarily the whole thing, because I think you have some pieces there that are worth keeping in the long haul, but you just need to restructure. Not necessarily rebuild, but restructure. And that's what you're seeing right now with the football team.
So let's kind of zoom out and look at big picture for a second here. New Year's Six chances are down this season.
Of sorts, yeah.
But they still have a shot at the East, the AAC East. They're one game back, technically a game and a half back from Cincinnati.
Mm-hmm.
Lot of conference games still to be played. What are the chances for UCF?
I believe that the chances of UCF making it to that conference championship game, I would say about 15 to 20%. I really don't like our chances, and here's why. You got to go to Temple. And the East is going to come down to UCF, Cincinnati, and Temple. And with a loss already to Cincinnati, the one thing that benefits UCF though, they don't have to play Memphis and they don't have to play SMU. But you got to play Tulsa on the road, and that the thing is, what sucks about being in the American Conference is you got to play true road games. You got to play like Cincinnati, and you got to go to Philadelphia to play Temple. Not an easy game either, and that for UCF is going to be another challenge. If they can win out, they have to win out at this point. There's no question about that. They have to win out, and honestly, personally, I don't see it happening. I think they lose to Temple, but I think they can win the rest of their games. I don't think there's a game on their schedule that they can. I think Tulsa's a bit of a challenge, but I think if they win those games, they're going to need some help from Cincinnati. They're going to need some help from Temple. But 2 losses is going to be very difficult to make it to the conference championship, especially with a loss already to Cincinnati.
Yeah, it was a tough one. And, 15 to 20%, you don't really like those odds, but, hey, they still got a chance.
So you're saying there's a chance.
Well, unfortunately, just like the football team, the UCF volleyball team also traveled to Cincinnati, and they played the Bearcats as well. And that matchup went just about as you'd expect, kind of similar to the football team. They got swept 3-0. However, it was a competitive sweep. So, Jeremy, how far ahead is this Cincinnati Bearcats team from volleyball team?
It's definitely one of the tougher challenges that UCF faces on their schedule. It's a true road test, and that's something that the volleyball team, it's a young team. It's a young team. They're still working their way. A lot of underclassmen, but it's just something you got to grow with, and I think that it just takes time. It's one of those things that just takes more time.
Yeah, and Cincinnati has a dynamic player, probably the conference player of the year,
yes,
in Jordan Thompson. She had 28 kills in that matchup, which was 49% of the team's total kills.
That's a good stat.
And she had 13 digs as well to go with that, so she can play defense as well.
Yeah.
So what did UCF do ineffectively to prevent her from get going?
I think that it honestly, they just didn't know what to do. They tried things. They tried different looks. They tried different schemes, and none of it's good. Because when you have a player like Thompson like that, it's just you got to try things, and it may or may not work, and you just gotta throw everything at a wall, see what sticks, and unfortunately for UCF, not enough stuck.
Yeah, so let's get a little bit more nitpicky on that UCF defense. Mackenzie Kuchmaner, she's the new libero for UCF. She replaces Jordan Pingle. She only had 13 digs in the matchup, and as the libero, that's generally an unacceptable number in terms of digs.
Not good.
So how much does UCF miss Jordan Pingle?
I think the thing is when you have a player like Jordan Pingle, who iconic UCF volleyball player, you can't necessarily replace that person with one person. You have to replace that person with multiple people. It's like when you have an MVP and the MVP goes down, you can't just plug one person back in. It's the MVP. Jordan Pingle was the team's MVP last year, and it takes a village to replace an MVP, and simply the village is not developed enough yet in order to fulfill what Pingle was able to do for the team last season.
So one last little quick comparison here between Cincinnati and UCF on the game. Cincinnati had 57 kills, and they had an assist on every single one of those kills.
Good teams do.
UCF did not have an assist on every single kill. They were 27 of 31 on the assist-to-kill ratio. What's the difference between that in terms of maturity for the teams? Is Cincinnati just that much more gelled as a team?
It takes development, and it takes time. It's something that doesn't, you don't wake up and just have that kind of chemistry. You don't wake up and just have that ability to go out and do something like that. Cincinnati is further along to where they want to be than UCF is. And it's simply, as I mentioned earlier, something that takes time.
So it was a rough one, but despite the loss, the Knights had to travel to East Carolina on Sunday to play the ECU Pirates. And boy, did they avenge that performance against Cincinnati. UCF swept ECU in 3 blowout sets that weren't even as close as the score suggested. And it gives the conference a quick reminder that the Knights are still hungry for that conference title. So, Jeremy, what was so different about this game compared to the game against Cincinnati?
It was a confidence booster, and it's something they were able something when you come off a loss like the Cincinnati loss, you tend to focus on things a little bit more than you normally would, and you're almost in tunnel vision. And I think that the things that went wrong in the Cincinnati game were huge points of emphasis for the team. And you're able to use that and directly affect the next game. And that's what they did. They had more assists. It was a much more cohesive game than what happened. And they made quick work. Not just work, but quick work.
Now, when UCF volleyball plays, you always expect McKenna Melville to have a big game. Yeah. She had 16 kills, 11 digs. But not necessarily a surprise performance, but a big performance came from Dressie Pass, who had 18 assists and 4 service aces. So how important is it for UCF to get someone else in the mix to have big games like this and to step up when McKenna doesn't? So McKenna doesn't always have to carry the load.
Well, that's the thing. So you mentioned earlier how Jordan Pingle was kind of like the MVP, the glue of the team, and you need multiple people to replace that. That's what you need from people like Dressie Pass, from people like McKenna Melville. You need a village, and the village showed up against ECU. It did not show up against Cincinnati, but that's what you need in order to win these matches, especially these conference matches on the road. You need to be able to. It's a team effort. You can't, like the football team, you can't just have one player show up in a road game. It has to be a cohesive effort for the entire team, and that's what happened against ECU.
So it turned into a good game for UCF when they took down the Pirates. And coming up next for the volleyball team is the all-important War on I-4 matchup. UCF plays at USF on Friday night in Tampa. And in this edition of the War on I-4, the Knights look to put a stamp on where their program is in comparison to USF. USF right now is 1-3 in conference play, and they're on a current 3-game losing streak. So, Jeremy, what do the Knights have to do to keep the Bulls from getting back on track?
They need to bring the village again, and you gotta. It's a team effort. USF, a game that they need to win. I would say it's something that you look when you're in conference play at this point. you're at the point where you need to make a push, especially when you drop games early on. So that's what USF is going to bring to the table. It's not going to be an easy win. A 1-4 in any sport, never easy to win. You can't just show up. You got to show up and you got to show out. And I think that once the village comes in, then hopefully we can get a win. I would love to see a win. You never want to see USF win unless it's, an out of conference game, I guess you could say, but I'll leave it at that.
So, in this game, what is the one area of emphasis that UCF should really focus on going into this game?
I would say assists. I want to see that assist to kill ratio up higher than what it was. If Cincinnati is the team you are looking to catch, and then UCF needs to try to emulate more of what Cincinnati is trying to do and try to, work up to that standard. And that is something that we saw improvement on in the ECU game, and you need to prove that it wasn't a fluke. You need to be able to not just do things once and fix mistakes, but fix mistakes and be able to do that at a consistent basis. And that's hopefully what we can have in this game on Friday night.
So, you heard it from Jeremy. UCF certainly trying to catch the Bearcats, but there's still a lot of game time to go, a lot of games in conference play. So, one final thing to note is that both the UCF men's and women's soccer teams had to travel to Dallas to play the SMU Mustangs this week. The men's team played the top 5 ranked Mustangs to a 3-3 tie, a game that they probably could have won, and the women's team came away with a 2-1 win over the nationally ranked Mustangs. So both teams proved to be forces in the conference this year as the soccer season begins to wind down and conference play comes down to it. All right, so let's talk about some upcoming schedules for our various nights. This week is a much smaller number of games, with the football and women's soccer teams both having bye weeks. UCF Volleyball is going to play at USF on Friday before hosting Memphis on Sunday. And the men's soccer team is going to play just once this week, a home game versus Tulsa. Jeremy, as always, you take care as good as ever. Appreciate having you here.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
And thank you to everyone that came and watched. It's been a pleasure. Another episode of Might I Add, and it's been a great one. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube page, and follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Hitting the Field. I'm Kyle Partain, he's Jeremy Brener, and we'll catch you next week on Might I Add.